a moment to talk about how amazing this show really is in one of the worst economies, some say, since the Great Depression. We have 3,000 people, or just over 3,000 people at this show, with a 15% increase since Affiliate Summit East last time in Boston. And I think that's attributed to Sean and Missy and the work that they do. So let's give them a round of applause for putting this together. But I also think it's a tribute to you, the people here who really do love affiliate marketing and the things that it provides for all of us, the lifestyle that we all like to have. As the show continues to grow over time, I've always said that affiliate marketing is one of the strongest industries and niches out there. And we're proving it every single time these shows go by. So congrats to you. Feedfront, if you haven't looked at your copy of Feedfront magazine, it's the official magazine of the Affiliate Summit. This is the 7th edition. I can't believe it's the 7th edition already, but it's a great magazine. It has the beauty of having the actual agenda. So all the speakers and the agenda for this week, the next 2 days, built right into the magazine. So not only are you getting tips and tricks from affiliate experts in the industry, you're getting the complete agenda for the show in this one. And I would recommend that anyone go over to feedfront.com and sign up for a free subscription, because it's a great magazine. Twitter. How many people are in here on Twitter? Everyone's on Twitter, right? Okay. So if you want to follow everything that's happening on Twitter, you want to tweet about what's going on at the show, use the hashtag ASE09. What I do is I set up a bookmark on my phone for that hashtag, and then I go check it every once in a while, and I can see what everyone's talking about the show, where their tweet-ups are, where people are having lunch, what sessions are happening. It's a neat way to stay up to date with what's happening. Or you can also reply to @Affiliate Summit. There is an old hashtag or Affiliate Summit account called AFSUM that they don't want you to use. So if you stick with ASE09 and Affiliate Summit, you'll be good to go. Today at 3:30 to 4:30, this is really important. If you are an affiliate or a merchant, if you have your tag on and at the bottom it says affiliate or merchant, there is a thing called Business Card Bingo today at 3:30 in the general session room. And it's a great networking session for affiliates to get together with merchants. And one of the main things that happens here at the show, merchants are looking for affiliates, affiliates are looking for merchants, so this is kind of their own little dating love connection today. So please show up at 3:30 to 4:30. You're probably not going to find a better chance to network with each other than at that moment. And again, you have to have affiliate or merchant on your badge to get in. Wi-Fi, of course, everyone wants to stay connected at the show. I do. The Wi-Fi is free in the general conference area, as usual. Look for Hilton Conference Wi-Fi, and the password is ASE09. If you have any problems, just find somebody on the staff, and maybe they can help you get online. Surveys. The staff, if you notice the staff, they are in black shirts with a buy.at logo on them. And if you see a staff and they give you a survey to fill out, you should fill it out. Why? Because they're giving away platinum passes for the next show in Vegas. And a platinum pass is a really great deal. So if you just take 30 seconds of your time after a session or wherever you are, fill out the survey, they'll really enjoy it. You could win. And just hand it to a staff member. Monday parties, we're almost done. Affiliate Summit Karaoke is tonight from 9 to 12 in the Sutton Complex, which is on a sign right around here. Missy's ready to get on stage and sing some Guns N' Roses. So look for the Sutton Complex. That'll be tonight in the air conditioning, the nice, sweet, cool air conditioning tonight at 9 o'clock. I think it should be pretty interesting to see people singing this evening. But there are more parties. So if you want to know about all the other ones that are happening, head on over to affiliatesummit.com/blog. There's a slide that is not in here that we do need to talk about, which is the Affiliate Summit Triathlon, which is tomorrow evening. At the end of all the general sessions, they'll have Affiliate Summit Triathlon. It'll probably be in this big room. But what that is, there are going to be events that you can register to join. You can still do it. It's $100, and you can compete. And if you win a booth at Affiliate Summit East or Affiliate Summit West 2010 in Las Vegas that you can keep for yourself or even resell if you'd like. So if you want to enter, it's $100. All the money goes to Big Brothers and Big Sisters. And you can register with Missy Ward at the show or other people at the show. affiliatesummit.com/triathlon. So please go register. I think it's going to be a fun event. They're going to do some really fun things. All right, so we're getting ready to bring Chris up. I hope he's still here around here someplace. Chris is doing a book signing immediately following his keynote, which is going to come up in a couple minutes at 11:15 today. So as soon as this is over, head on up, I think, one floor to America's Hall 2. And Chris is going to be up there. There's 700 copies of this book, Trust Agents, that Chris just got today. We had seen it before he did. And he'll be signing those up there today. And I don't know if they'll have books for sale up there, but anyway, I think it's time to really start thinking about bringing Chris up here, because everyone came to hear from Chris. I've known Chris a long time. We speak together at shows. We write about similar types of things. Chris is a great guy. You know, I see him all about blogging in the world, about social media, and all kinds of wonderful things involving, you know, like we're going to talk about trust and influence. But when I go to shows sometimes, people look at me and they come up to me and say, "Hey, are you Chris Brogan?" And I say, "Well, I'm not, you know, I don't think we look a lot alike, but we have some of the similar facial hair things, and, you know, we talk about the same type of things." And Chris is probably like, "What are you talking about?" But it happens to me every once in a while, and I said, "Man, there must be something to this." And I thought, I wonder if Chris and I were related. And I started to do some research online. I'm sorry to tell you, Chris, if you're here in the room, that I found this picture of us. This was you and I at birth. You are my brother. But no, actually, I wish you were, because you are somebody who has built so much trust, so much influence, and it's ironic, well, not really, that your book that's what the book's all about. Chris has been working so long to build a massive audience online and building trust and all the things he preaches about in his very own book at chrisbrogan.com, and for the companies that he works for and the places that he speaks. We see him at events and we all laugh and we all learn from him. He's an amazing educator. If you're not subscribed to his blog, I think that you should. Here's Sean and Missy to present for Big Brothers and Big Sisters.
Well, as you know, Sean and I, with each affiliate summit, always select one charity that we decide to, do some fundraising for and get a bunch of the affiliate marketers together to help support. So for this show, it was Big Brothers, Big Sisters of New York City, and I'm excited to say that so far, throughout today, we've raised $20,000.
All right, thank you. That's really great that they do that. All right, so let's get back to it. Let's get Chris up here. I want to tell you a quick story before I bring Chris up. I was speaking at a conference with Chris earlier this year, real early in the year, and we got to the show and I was there and we said hello, and he said, "Jim, I have a meeting at 3 o'clock and my presentation is at 2 and my presentation's at 3 and you're at 2, and he said, "Would you mind if I switch with you and I go first and you go next after me?" And I said, I had never seen Chris speak before. I thought, no problem, Chris. I'd be more than happy to comment. You're a nice guy. You're my brother. We can do this. So I switched with him and I proceeded to sit in the audience and watch him do 55 minutes off of a notepad with some scribbles on it, like he was Jerry Seinfeld at Madison Square Garden. And I thought to myself, that'll be the last time I ever follow Chris Brogan. So, Chris, I go first this time. Now you come on up. Chris Brogan, everybody.
Thanks, Jim. Oh, God. I have to touch this. Before we get going, I want to bring up my co-author, Julien Smith. Now it's working. Little Jimi Hendrix in the morning, kids. Minus the fun. before I want to get started, but I want to bring up my co-author Julien Smith, and Julien's going to present with me. We sort of we made the request late in the game, so it's sort of like a secret added free prize inside. Julien and I work on sort of two different spectrums, in which I tend to be the huggy, human focused. If I'm trying to get something solved, I get the human side of it first as best I can. Julien is sort of the quiet other side of the coin person that does it in a different way. But at the same time, I do computer stuff and Julien does human stuff, so we're a nice blend. Ladies and gentlemen, my co-author Julien Smith as well, please. What microphone number are you, Julien?
No. What number are you? What number on your sticker?
Yeah. Okay, there we go. Hey. Hey, guys. How are you?
All right.
Good morning.
I understand that there's a live feed going on, but what I want to ask for is, and this is so absolutely backwards of what you would know of us. Please don't tweet this yet. You know how you like to quote little quotes out of the speech and all that kind of stuff? We have an idea. Part of Trust Agents is about being on the inside versus being on the outside and understanding the benefits and the values of doing that. One of the things we're working with is the concept of what it means to be on the outside versus the inside. So we talked about we wanted to hold off for just a little bit. By the way, this is us. So Julien, why don't you give a really quick small bio about you, and then I'll talk a little bit about me. And then
Bio about what?
I don't know. What do you want to? So these people are going to spend less than an hour with us and determine if it's worth their time. So what do you want to say?
I guess, we just, what we saw when we started writing this 2 years ago is we saw that people, there were so many problems. Like everything that we were doing, there was such a problem with attention, whether it be affiliates or people that are Fortune 500 companies. Reaching people is impossible. And in the space that we were in, the social space that we saw developing, we saw an answer to that involved being able to get your message through, whether that's a sales pitch, whether that's, your email marketing campaign, or whether it's anything else, and getting it through with a much higher, percentage chance of success. So I mean, that's where all this came from, and so me and Chris.
And where did you come from? What's your background before writing a book with me? Because some of the folks might not have already heard your award-winning, several-year-old internet podcast and radio show.
I guess I came from radio and from traditional broadcasting, so I was one of the first professional podcasters. I run a search marketing company, and so that's all organic and not PPC kind of stuff. And so from my side, looking at what the mechanical aspects of trust are, and how things like Google play into it, and how all of the mechanics of seeing how somebody actually converts from a stranger all the way to a sale kind of thing, all of that is played into the book. So I guess we get both sides,
Yep. And I've been at this over a decade, and by this I mean mostly these kind of things that we think of as the social web, blogging. I got to podcasting late, I got to video blogging late, I got to everything late. I'm the second wave adopter. Why? Because I like it. In the movie when the first guys run in the room and they get machine gunned by the bad guys, I like to be the next one in that shoots some of them. So I'm the second adopter. But I've been doing this for more than a decade in different ways, and I work now with mostly, by strangeness, I work mostly with Fortune 100 companies. We're in the little department who contacts my team of 3 people plus change. Usually swamps us by body count because it's Microsoft or it's General Motors soon and it's Sony Electronics. But it's really weird that they're asking for me, because what they're asking for is they're saying, we understand what you're getting at. You're trying to say that we need to be human again, and that's what this book gets at. We're not really talking about the book, we're talking about trust. But as a starting point of this, we wanted to start off with something. Julien had the idea. He says, we should really kind of give you the for dummies. This next slide is why we said, please don't tweet it yet.
So at the beginning of every book, that for dummies books, I know none of you have read them, of course, but
Right.
Some people have read them, and at the beginning they have a cheat sheet. So this is our little cheat sheet for trust agents. So if you ignore the rest of this, if you're asleep for the rest, we totally understand, but at least take this down in your head and remember these core parts, because these are the parts that will be on the test later on, especially when you're, wondering why it is that your stuff isn't converting as well, or when you're, looking for new ways to connect with, new people, whether it be to sell to them, whether it be to get into communities, whatever. This is the cheat sheet. That's the one you put on your wall.
And I judge books by their cover, and somebody pointed out, I forget who was nice enough to point this out, I think it was Michael Calianis down in Florida. It's really funny how the book got printed, because what it really says is trust Chris Brogan. I kind of dig that. I'm getting shirts made of that.
It's like subversive messaging.
It really is.
Make trust Chris Brogan. Okay, I will.
Meanwhile, Julian Smith runs the agents.
Yeah, I have my own.
Okay, for people who didn't necessarily pick it up because it's stupid to pick up books at conferences because it makes your bag heavy, that's okay, I understand. I go to a lot of conferences and most of the bags are douchey. Ours might also be. I do want to point out, though, that the book is not about social media. The book is not about how to tweet. The book is not about why you should have many Facebook friends. The book is about how mechanics of trust work on the web when there's less human interaction. Who hasn't met me in person before? Okay, hands down. Who feels like they kind of know me, though, even though they haven't met me in person before? Small fewer, thank you. Bang. In the social nerd crowd, that's a huger number, FYI. I get it, you're rich. We're at the attention wars. We're talking about this. I have a quick joke for the ADD set, of which we probably all are. How many kids with ADD does it take to change a light bulb? Let's ride bikes. We have a problem with attention right now. We have, a huge problem with attention. Julian, I mean, if you want to start addressing it from your perspective, what are people looking for as the barrier to these people making millions more dollars?
Right. I mean, what we're looking at is we're in a situation where you're not only competing, against the person you're sitting next to or whatever, the person that's in your own niche, or the person that's even in your own market. You're competing for attention with everything. So you're competing with the spam that is getting sent into their inbox if they don't have a good spam filter. You're competing with their wife if their wife is telling them that they have to go and get supper. You're competing with literally everything in the world. And that's what attention war is. It's not being able to be seen unless you know how to get through the filter, get through the noise, which is unbelievable.
And it's a terrorist war. I mean, there is no organized, there's no organized opposition. This is a war where every side is fighting. Tony Perkins from Always On Media quoted something that was really interesting to me. By the way, quick disclaimer, 61.4% of statistics are made up on the fly. 73, I had it wrong. People ages 13 to 18 are consuming 66% of the media that kids 13 to 18 consume is by people they know, by peers. So you're not competing with TiVo, you're not competing with anything else. You're trying to get into their friend filter because that's where they're getting all their data. They're getting it from other people. We've also noticed that, we've asked for an unbundled internet.
Right, so we had AOL, obviously, and you would type in, AOL keyword money, and you would get, motleyfool.com or something like that. And
I thought you get John Chow.
Yeah, right. He wishes. But I mean, that could be the same with everything. And now we're asking now we want an internet that's fast and that's, anybody can connect with anything, and now the result of that is that it doesn't even matter if you're subscribed to the RSS reader. It doesn't matter if you're in the email list. Nobody notices.
I call this the restaurant to grocery store to convenience foods problem, because what happened was we all were eating at restaurants and we're like, man, I don't really like what's at this restaurant anymore. I wish I had all the ingredients, I just make it my own way. And that's what we get right now with the internet. But then we get lazy about it. So we go to the grocery store that we have all the unbridled ingredients, and we just go buy the rotisserie chicken and the already made potatoes and make the Thanksgiving dinner. There's three levels we think three levels of this attention that we need to go, and this is where people, I think, kind of rush the experience. This is where the problem comes in trying to get more people to take action on what you're doing. Do you want to go through the three levels a little bit, or?
Awareness, reputation, trust. I mean, it's fairly self-evident, It's like the presence that is behind you, and you're aware that there's there's a person behind you versus, oh, that person behind me is, I don't know, whatever, shoe money or something. And then trust is, I trust he's not going to stab me in the back or something. I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, there's each level builds upon the next, and when you get to the top, at that point, I mean, that's it. That's when people don't even know who you are. They don't know much about you, and yet they know that you're going to do the right thing. They know that you're going to do good by them. That's what you want to get to.
So yeah, the problem is that with attention, we have this thing where now we have to start with getting people's awareness. We have to get them to even notice that we're there. And this is, I think, where most of our anxiety comes, and this is actually the part that we think you can actually learn to be much better than the old days. We worry about cold calling. I mean, one of the things that we're doing as people, marketing in this is we're cold calling people in a lot of ways, and we're not thinking that way when we're buying links. We're not thinking that way when we're, starting campaigns. But we're cold calling people. We're hoping for some cold, not mechanical experience instead of some kind of warmed up reputation. I mean, there's a huge difference if Jim Cooperl invites you to meet such and such a person. If Jim's standing there with you and he's got your arm and he says, "I really want you to meet Lewis House," that opens up the game in a whole different way than if Lewis just comes up and goes, "Hey, I'm good looking," because he is. The other problem is with campaigning, we have a problem with taking your energy and your excitement about something, and it turns empathy into atrophy, and then it goes to entropy. We collapse under the weight of people trying to sustain. Julien, this is your trust equation. Please walk us through
The trust equation. Oh, social capital. Everybody knows social capital. It's when people, tell a joke in a bar, and then that person gains social capital. It's what makes communities tighter, right? Everybody that you know, whether you've met them once or you've met them 10 times or they're your family, you have some form of social capital with them. And that's what's being exchanged even when money isn't being exchanged online. And so our idea is, not our idea, this is the way things work, is trust is the equivalent of social capital. You take social capital, you put it on the web, because everything we do on the web is written. It's written down, it means links. Links builds traffic, it builds social proofing, because the more people see you online, the more they see you as an expert, and the more they see you as somebody that they can go to for some piece of information, that helps build your network. At the end, you've got a massive network of people from which you can call for any resource that you want. So in the end, it works out much better than doing things cold every time.
Absolutely. And what we're finding with that is we're finding that understanding that there's other currencies besides cash is another secret to the game. We think that there's a lot that, you understand this, right? For example, we'll go to a site and we'll see, we'll give this away for free, and we're trying to lure you in to spend some money on something else. This is, part of Chris Anderson's book, If You Slogged Through It. God bless the boy. He was paid by the word, evidently. If you boiled free down to the 2 pages you need, essentially there's times when you should give stuff away because you get more back. And the figuring this out, though, is if you can figure out that there's it's not a financial spectrum, there's another whole system playing. We know this. When we do a favor for someone, think about this. If you're going on vacation and you ask somebody to watch your cat, you have 2 ways you can do it. Can you watch my cat for a week? Sure, I'd be really happy to do that. Thanks, that just really does me one good. I'm really worried about her, she's been sick. That's fine. What if you add to the very end of that sentence, and I'll give you $100?
You're dumb.
Do you feel the difference?
It's disgusting, right? It feels weird.
What if I invite you over for dinner, and at the very end of dinner, it's a really good time, I hand you a check?
It's a really great dinner. It goes $100.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just want to give you the frame.
$100 out of it.
Right. I want to give you the frame of the rest of this. We're going to start with make your own game. And the story there is Cirque du Soleil. That's your story. What's that? Oh, what are you doing? Oh, thank you. Sorry, you borrowed $100.
But for Cirque du Soleil, one of the examples of make your own game is basically to try and reinvent the space that you're in. If you're competing with the same people in a niche, and you're doing exactly what they are, you have to understand what they're doing and what their behavior is in order to try not to copy it, but instead to differentiate yourself. So when we talk about Cirque du Soleil, which are homegrown, like where I come from, Montreal, Canada, they looked at the circus model and they go, wait, okay, the animals are very expensive and they're gross and nobody cares about them anyway, flush them. And they said...
They didn't really flush them.
They actually, except the alligators.
Right.
Yeah, the alligators, they flushed. But the rest of them, they just got rid of them. They're like, this doesn't matter. People don't care about the animals. They don't care about star-named performers. They just care that the performers are really great and are doing great stuff. So all the star performers were really expensive. They flushed them. Instead, they raised the cost of ticket prices and they increased, the sort of theater aspect of it. And they found themselves still in the circus space, but having transformed everything about it and making themselves the pole position. At that point, everyone is competing with them. They're not competing anymore. They were small, they were upstart, they were nobody, and they transformed themselves, and now who's competing with Cirque du Soleil? Everybody's doing that copycat stuff, nothing's working.
And if anybody's seen the show, I went in Vegas because we have a trust agent inside of Cirque du Soleil Jessica, who Berlin, who gave us access to it, and also was really nice to us during the Live World Expo. Anyone who's been to the event, I mean, it's a really interesting equation. We will take many things away from your experience of a circus, and we will charge you 7 times more to attend the circus, and you will be proud and happy. It works really well. The Beatles, what's cool if you dig the Beatles. Why don't you, we wanted to talk about people who had made their own game, and we picked 3 authors. One of them I was just maligning. Why don't you explain that? We were talking about the name-changing kind of part of things with Tim Ferriss, for example.
Yeah, this is the easiest thing to, well, I mean, it's definitely one of the simplest ways to make your own game. So we talk about Tim Ferriss, the author of The 4-Hour Workweek. I'm sure none of you have read it. And you've got somebody who could have put himself into the time management category. Instead, he creates an expression called lifestyle design. And everyone knows what lifestyle is, and they know what design is, so they can figure out what lifestyle design is, but no one has ever really used that expression and created a space out of it before. And you can tell that when you look at the Google Trends in trends.google.com, that'll let you know that immediately when the book comes out, bang, lifestyle design starts being searched for. And who's at the pole position once again? It's not like Cirque du Soleil didn't precisely reinvent the space, but they said, well, it's a little, he said, Tim Ferriss said, it's a little bit different. Call it lifestyle design instead, and now everyone's going to go to him and consider him the leader in it.
Same thing was true with the tipping point. The tipping point was it was an expression that people had known of in certain circles before, but Malcolm put it out in front of everybody. Malcolm has a really interesting, if you search for the Moth podcast, which was recorded here in New York, this particular one, Gladwell tells a story of when he had a job on a news desk, and he didn't really know what he should be doing there. And so he'd call his friends kind of bored and go, what should we do? And they started saying, we should press to get certain, they were writing like wire stories that get picked up by other papers and stuff. They started having a game with each other. We should press to get certain phrases thrown into papers. And it might be like something like unequivocal damage. And they try to get that into as many stories as they can in a row.
And start looking for it elsewhere, right? So that's what happens with tipping point. Tipping point is a phrase that is totally passed into the mainstream. And once again, this is somebody who it almost feels so common now that you can't believe that he just invented the phrase. But it wasn't a very common thing beforehand.
And he made his own game. And the fact that Chris Anderson, author of The Long Tail, when I talk smack about him, about free, is because if you think, back up a little bit, the dude's an economist. Does anybody know any really exciting economists? Yeah, me too.
Right.
So the idea that you got the phrase the long tail, which is a basic economy factor, I mean, it exists, but it was like, seriously, he could have flipped to any page in that book and said, I think I'll talk about Schrodinger's cat. And he made a book out of it. And now we all talk about it like it's true.
Julien, so the full court press.
Yeah, you just gave the punchline to the story. Talk a little bit about your...
No, but I mean, it's the kind of thing that they talked about in the New Yorker in a Malcolm Gladwell article, about how using some parts of a game, we're all about, especially when you get metrics involved in what you do, seeing things as a game and going, okay, how are we going to use the rules that people aren't taking advantage of, or how are we going to discard rules that are no longer relevant that everyone is still playing by? So in this example, what they were talking about is somebody called Vivan Randive, who's basically a basketball coach for a high school team of 12-year-olds, and all of his kids were small and weaker, and they just weren't the best basketball players. But instead of losing every game like most people would do and just give up and play by the same rules, he just played a full court press for everybody. And none of the other teams knew how to compete with him. It's something that everybody knows how to do. Instead of, okay, you've scored and everybody seems to run to the other side of the court for some reason, he would defensively make them work for every single inch of that court. And it got to a point where they got to the championships and somebody, I guess at the top of the league was like, you can't do that anymore. And they actually were like, no, you're being too hard on them. You can't do it this way. It gets so hard they can't even compete.
Basically, he not only did he make the game, he dominated the game and just kind of took it over. So 3 examples of things that you can maybe do for what you're looking to do is find your value differentiation. And I mean, I think this audience is probably better at this than most. I think you guys understand deep niche. I think you understand, it's funny, you say niche, I say niche, and we talked about that on the train.
Yeah.
It's the Canadian in you. I don't really have to tell you about that one. Let's go to the next one. Create a new word for yourself. I did that with a client very recently. One of my clients is Citrix Online, who does GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar, GoToHelp. And we said that, it's really hard to compete against the word webinar. Everybody does. So I said, well, what are these people doing? Well, they're the mobile and distributed workforce. They're the people that work out of Panera's and all that. So we called it word shifting. Well, interestingly, we ranked for word shifting because it's my damn word. And we skipped over all the people fighting over webinar. The other trick is that people understand the concept. Where are you word shifting today? Oh, I'm actually at the JFK. I'm at the JetBlue terminal. The other last one was learn the systems and understand the difference between attuned and distorted. Julien has a lot in the book about game theory. And we talked a lot. I mean, there's a lot that didn't get into the book about game theory because Julien liked it so much. But do you want to talk just really brief on just what we're talking about in that regards about, when you should be in system and understanding the system and when we should be out and distorting? Or if not, I'll just go to the next.
Well, I don't know. I guess it's really about, all of this comes from Douglas Rushkoff, an article that he wrote in Boing Boing about playing, hacking, and programming. It's the three methods of getting involved in any system or getting involved in any game. And so basically it would be first learn to play the game, then discover what's useless about it and what people are doing that's wrong, and discover how to make workarounds. We call that gate jumping, because there are gatekeepers, those that protect the inside and the outside, and then there are gate jumpers, those that say, well, I'm going to ignore all the rules and just go do it. And then at the third point at which one really makes his own game is you start to program your own rules and get everybody else to play by them because you look like you're at the top of a new pile.
So the next one, the next part, how do we do time? I don't even know where we are. Oh, plenty of time. Hi, Stephanie Agresta. Texted me.
One of us is like understanding that insiders get less friction for everything that they do than outsiders. Outsiders are always trying to get into a group and try to, let's say, sell to that group or be a part of that group in many different ways. But one of the reasons that it simply doesn't happen very well is because they speak a different language. They try to speak to them in a way that they aren't a part of the group. So all of the friction on the outside, it's very difficult to get from the outside to the inside. Sell from the outside of the group to the inside of the group. The trick is to be the inside.
We think if there's any of the lessons in Trust Agents that apply directly to the affiliate marketing universe, we think this is one of them. Getting to the inside is way different than some of the other methods you're using, because you're using brute force a lot of times to get in, or sometimes nuance. But we think that some of the opportunities are in this. Can you tell the I'm Charlie Sheen's friend story?
Yeah, I forget where I got this, but it's people, you'll go to a party where there's like a celebrity there, and everyone's talking about it, and they're like, oh, I'm gonna go try to either, hang out with Charlie Sheen, or I'm gonna try and sleep with Charlie Sheen, or whatever it is you want to do, right? And so somehow, even if you don't end up hanging out with Charlie Sheen, you hang out with one of Charlie Sheen's friends, that's somehow still considered a victory. Why? Because he's on the inside. It's not Charlie Sheen. He hasn't done anything special. He hasn't, neither is Charlie Sheen really, but you see my point. But the point is he's still on the inside. We consider him someone special because he is an insider and we're an outsider. And getting to the inside of the group, once you're in with Charlie Sheen's friend, hey, next thing you know, you might be in with Charlie Sheen, It's a natural human behavior, and we have to learn how to get into that group.
And by the way, it can work in the opposite in a really interesting way. One of the people who are coming to social media in a big way, not sure that I would have presaged this, are hip-hop artists. No, it's not just porn stars on Twitter. It turns out there's hip-hop artists. And Chameleonaire was at Twist Up a couple weeks ago in Los Angeles with us. And I almost walked right past him. I didn't realize who he was. I just kind of double-took, and there he was. And he was just hanging out. He was just one of us. And the difference is, he switched the equation a little bit. He didn't do the I'm Charlie Sheen, ooh, he just hung with us. And so he's got way more fans, always white people, you know what I mean? He's got way more fans liking him now that didn't know a thing about him, when I was buying his stuff on iTunes. And
right.
Why? Because suddenly we felt like we wanted to be in a relationship with the guy. Anybody meet MC Hammer at any recent tech event? I run into that dude all the time. He's always at some tech event, just kind of hanging out. He's not like that guy from back in the 80s and 90s. He's one of us.
And the interesting part of this is the fact that if you're inside, if you become a part of a group and you become one of us, and that group is sort of what we call like promiscuous linkers or promiscuous talkers or something like that. People like bloggers or people that, you know, just generally like to connect people together, and all of a sudden you're connected with what we call an agent zero, somebody who's at the center of a network and who can connect you with hundreds and hundreds of other people. But the first trick is to get inside of that group. If you're not on the inside, then there's no way for you to connect with anyone. Everyone's going to act as each other's buffer.
Way too much friction. So this is Greg Cangelosi. Greg runs an email marketing company called Blue Sky Factory. Greg has written about it in our book, I don't know, every 12th page or something like that. Him and Jeff Pulver, for some reason, got written about a lot. The reason is because the first ever PodCamp that I ran, I mean, nobody knew who I was, nobody knew what was going on. I had no way to ask people for money. I didn't understand how to ask for sponsorship for events. Greg was one of the guys who sponsored.
Right.
And Julien was at the first ever PodCamp, and what would you say your impression of Greg was from that event, just hanging out?
I met with Greg last week. We had breakfast, and he was like, you know, I never thought, because even he did not know what he was tapping into. But the secret is that he just decided to sponsor the event for no reason. He was like, I'm going to sponsor it. Next thing you know, he was at every event, at every PodCamp, in as many cities as he could. He never sold anything to anyone. He said, I run an email marketing company, and that was basically it. But next thing you know, he was working with Vaynerchuk, Gary Vaynerchuk. He was working with you and your email list. When he was up in Canada, it's because he was working with a massive multinational up there that is like, well, we need somebody in the US, and who are they going to go for? The status quo. And that is somehow now Blue Sky Factory, i.e. Greg Cangelosi.
And so, I mean, what Greg did really well was Greg, I mean, for the price of a couple of beers and or sponsoring part of PodCamp, I mean, he's had more and more referrals from us than he'll ever have from putting an ad anywhere. What he did was he got in, he hangs with us, he doesn't talk about his company at all. He's smooth like that. Diggable Planets. He's smooth like that.
Smooth.
You know this nerd. I meant Gary, not Sean. Gary's one of us. Gary does everything he can. I mean, he has his days, but he does everything he can to be a man. And the people think about this. We talk about Gary a little later on, so I don't want to spill it already. I don't want to steal his thunder.
Just another example, basically. You know, people that are insiders, once they've gotten in, they become the default person. The reason the Greg Cangelosi thing works is because now we know him as the email marketing guy.
Right.
And so, anytime we're like, hey, does anybody know email marketing? Well, let me give Greg a call. And Greg is always more than happy to help. You know, that's it. Now he has to turn work away.
And this is?
There's a dog coming out of a washing machine. I don't know what that is.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's a really bad picture of me.
That was Julien at first PodCamp Boston. I rushed up on him and shot a picture of his head really close. Julien, can you talk about sort of the you before PodCamp and you after PodCamp? Because, I mean, I think...
So, you remember we were talking about the same thing with Greg. He was there at the first PodCamp. We were talking yesterday about how if you're at the... So what we call this later is the idea of building a church around something. It doesn't have to be religious, it's just an easy example. So Affiliate Summit, whether it be East or West or whatever, is a church around which affiliates gather, and affiliate managers and everyone else that's connected to them. So they've built a church and they've put themselves at the center of it. And so that's what Chris did, that's what you did when you and Chris Penn and some other people worked on the first PodCamp. They put themselves at the center of something that at the time was something very small.
And I want to point out there's a difference. Julien was one of the first ever podcasters. This should in and of itself be kind of neato, but it is not. It does not buy you a bagel.
Yeah.
It turns out, I've asked. He also does not buy me a bagel. But what does happen is that when you're part of a movement where everybody feels a passion versus they're doing a job, then things change a lot. And that's also a last chapter of the book thing called Build Armies. Really quickly, before we get to the actual slide, we wanted to talk about language and information is vocabulary is one of the things.
Right. Well, I mean, so, you were, do you want to play, you're going to play the song now?
Oh, I didn't, oh yeah, well, no, I don't think we played.
So basically we're talking about the song Weezer, that song In the Garage, where they mention all of this sort of insider vocabulary.
Any Weezer fans at all? All right.
Yeah.
Anybody know the song in the Garage?
Yeah. So there's this song In the Garage where they talk about 12-sided dice and Dungeon Master's Guide and Nightcrawler and Kitty Pryde and all these other things. And when you hear these words, these sort of secret words, some of you know what a 12-sided die is and some don't. That's insider vocabulary. If you have insider vocabulary, then you're a part of a group. You feel like you're a part of it. So if ever I say 12-sided die, some people, the real geeks here, like the crazy geeks,
the ones who had really sex in high school?
Is. Yeah, exactly.
Right. We're the wrong crowd for this, I know. But no, it's interesting. Once you know the insider language, runners in the room, any like pretty significant runners? Okay. If I say 26.2, I don't have to say anything. That's, it's marathon. If you're in a group and you understand their vocabulary, if you get into their vocabulary, you get into their culture, you become one of us. Yeah. It is actually, it's in really bad 90s hacker movies, that's like how you bust through the wall to get to the virus.
That's it. Yeah, they would start using it. Very simple examples for people like us are like CPM, CPA, that kind of stuff. It's little language that we use. Insiders use it, outsiders don't. And strangely enough, it's the same kind of strategy that cults use, although we don't want to emulate cults, but their way of feeling tight does work. You know what I mean? They feel tight. So we want to do the same thing.
And so there's a thing, right? I mean, there's the very negative of feeling like you're on the inside of something, and there's the very positive on the inside. If you can use your powers for good, superheroes, you can do something really cool with making people feel like they're on the inside. If you're a dick, which a lot of people, that's how they do the insider thing, you can do it the other way. Quick, because I think we're going to run out of runway real quick, because this is number 2 out of 6.
Right, I know.
Find the agent zero. We'll talk a little bit more about the agent zero thing, but to get on the inside, find the promiscuous connector. The person who loves to connect people, Steph Agresta, loves to connect people to people. Do that kind of a connection, and then you start meeting the people you need to know to do business. Missy does that. There's a lot of people in this room who love to get you to meet people. Find that agent zero, and you start finding the one of us opportunity. Seek frictionless distribution.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, I don't know, we've been thinking a lot recently about friction and how, like, we have a Facebook fan page for the book, which has reached, I think, over 2,000 members now. And one of the reasons we choose Facebook is because there's less friction on Facebook to connect with people. They're already on it all the time. They see things on their wall, stuff like that. So it's not really about Facebook, but it is about seeking the least friction between people possible. That's why you remember just now, as an example, when I handed Chris $100, it felt weird. It's increasing friction between someone and another person. We never want to increase friction. We always want to decrease it to the least possible thing. You don't even, is that person going to open their email? No, they are going to open the email because I have reduced friction in the following ways. Find out what those are.
Absolutely. I'm going to rush through. You guys know how to read, right? So you've already been looking at that while we're talking and you're already done. Good. All right. The Archimedes effect. We call it the Archimedes principle. Turns out there is one, and
turns out that's something else.
So the Archimedes effect is?
Yeah, leverage. I mean, it's this book, the people in the social space seem to have difficulty with leverage, but the people in the affiliate space and in the monetizing kind of space understand it better. Leverage is how people get rich, whether it be in social capital or financial capital or any kind of capital at all. So the idea being is you're never going to start from nothing. All of us have experiences, and a network or whatever it is. Starting from nothing is utterly stupid. Never do it. You know what I mean? You want to start from something, a position of power, something that's important to you. That's something that's important to somebody else, but that's not a big deal to you. The example I always use is I used to be on Sirius satellite radio, which is not a big deal. But when I told people about it, they would be like, oh, that guy was on Sirius satellite radio. That's leverage. Using something that you don't care about that you can use freely to impress somebody else. That's one way of doing it.
That's one way. The other, this is the worst picture you'll ever see of Mike Arrington from TechCrunch, the far right there. Jeff Pulver, who I was going to talk about, who's on your left. And Jeff Pulver, it was my boss for a little while and business partner. And Jeff, to get to where he got, he was the co-founder of Vonage back in the day. And before this, I mean, he started from one position where he was passionate about technology. He started connecting to people who were also passionate about technology. And he leveraged some of his business relations, because he worked at a big financial firm in New York, to start meeting more of the people that he wanted to meet in the technology world. And so he finally got over that little geek wall, co-founded Vonage. He's one of the only guys who made money on Vonage. And then turned that into an event. He leveraged the event to do other things. He leveraged that to get access to people. He hangs out with people, in the music space. He gets like special, when Zeppelin did that little tiny reunion tour, he was one of the few people who got invited. So it's all about leverage. Why don't you talk a little bit about George Soros?
That's funny, yeah. So Andrew Barron is the guy on the right, and George Soros is the guy on the left. This is two great examples, actually. Because Andrew Barron is the guy who started Rocket Boom, one of the first video blogs.
I'm going to guess 3 people in this audience have ever heard Rocket Boom. Anyone? Rocket Boom.
Come on.
Wow, that's better than I thought.
I like you. And George Soros on the left is, among other things, a very famous currency trader who used the British pound in 1992, shorted it on one day and gained a profit of $2 billion as a result of it. And so one of the main things that you want to learn from this is the idea of multi-capitalism, that some forms of value have value to some people, but nothing to other people. And some forms of value are really important over here. All you have to do is you gain whatever it is that it's easy for you to gain, whether it's easy for you to make friends, whether it's easy for you to make money, whatever it is, and then push that into the next thing. And that's what Andrew Barron is a great example of. Why is he next to George Soros? Because his father used to be one of the great financiers of the world or something. Well, rest in peace. I think he passed away.
Bill Gates did a lot of leverage. Bill Gates took his, actually, who was it that wrote about it? Oh, Outliers. It was in Gladwell's book. You don't have to read it though. It was, I'm not trash talking other people's books. Yes, I am. As a reader though, not as an author. I'm a voracious book reader. Bill Gates did a lot of leverage. Bill Gates, think about this. I mean, we look at him now and you go, oh yeah, sure, right, Mr. Rich, billionaire nerd. Like, what the hell? Like, what happened? Like, rich billionaire nerd did not exist as a category.
Right.
And then you watch his TED Talk where he lets loose a bunch of mosquitoes on top of people. That's some serious
with malaria.
shit. Yeah. Hey, what if these all had malaria on them? There's a demo I never will give.
Exactly.
But he's got leverage. I mean, the fact that, did you ever see his video for his retirement? That YouTube thing? Man, that thing it's stacked full of people. And I get you could just buy them, but he doesn't. He asks them all nicely. You might recognize a few of these people.
Well, I mean,
Shoe Money.
So I mean, the reason I remember Shoe Money because he did I think it was either a blog post or a video. It was a long time ago, maybe a year ago, and he's like, if you're not leveraging, you're doing it wrong. You know what I mean? And so I forget the exact transition, but it's always like, leverage it. So I think it's always using one position and then taking that and going, okay, now what's my next thing? How am I going to push this to the next level? And everyone is always trying to think this, but getting good at leverage means you have to work a lot less hard at everything else. And I think the people that have succeeded in this space know that more than anything. Maybe they're looking for the next way to leverage it to something else, and
It's funny, as you're saying that sentence, I'm looking out at this crowd, I'm going, this guy, they get it.
Yeah.
This is like standing up here going, you don't have to go to a day job to make money.
Yeah, exactly. They know it.
It turns out. So build off your previous successes, and that's actually, anything I've done to be in any way, to get to where I am now, which is evidently on this carpet, anything I have done started with, I did this little thing, and I worked my damn ass off, and I ate ramen noodles, and I couldn't even afford to buy a lunch if they didn't feed me at the conference, and I sweat and struggled and worked hundreds of hours a week doing, maintaining a shit day job until I could get to that level.
Right.
Leverage to the hilt if you can, in any way you can without losing your house. Julian's point is never start from nothing because he's smarter than me.
The best expression you have, which you came up yesterday, is it's all chips. When you win at a certain game, just take that and push it to the other place. Always go to the bigger table. Always go to the bigger table. Nothing bad really ever happens. I'm not saying sink all your money into something, but if you know how to use leverage, you're going to be pushing to that bigger and bigger table over and over and over again. Next thing you know, you'll be at the top.
And again, a lot of the foundation of this book started when we started thinking the fact that there's different currencies besides money. When we started that thinking, we started acting in ways that we would say, oh, I don't have the money to do this. I will extract from a different currency bank to do it. Mm-hmm. Once you do that with how you're doing your business, it changes the game.
Absolutely.
In a significant way.
Yeah. And the web is the best place to do it because it's the kind of place where social capital really does equivocate to like links, for example.
Right.
And then you can take those links and you can push them to something else.
Gmail users, heavy Gmail users,
A few,
right?
yeah.
Okay, so when you first ever did it, you're like, where's the folders? And when you show it to people, that's what they say, where's the folders? And you're like, well, you use the labels, and the labels are the folders. And their head's like, oh, they can't do it. They don't get that the labels are the folders. And when we're looking at Outlook, the labels are the folders, it's presentation. And oddly, the data doesn't look like that on the hard drive in any of these ways, right? It's called abstraction. We abstract the real, we put it into some form that we can see it, It's all chips. If you don't think of money as money, if you think of it as one of several currencies of leverage, the game gets more fun.
Agent Zero.
There he is again.
Gary Vaynerchuk.
How did a Russian immigrant wine nerd from Jersey end up with a California agent?
I know. It doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did this guy get up on Conan O'Brien and make Conan eat dirt and cigar?
Yeah. How is he on Jimmy Fallon? Funnier than Jimmy Fallon.
Funny?
And then,
well, everybody's funnier than Jimmy Fallon.
Well, that's true. Everyone's funny. God, that is so sad.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but yet he'll meet up with you or meet up with, you know, some whoever, like some random normal person that is not famous. He'll connect with every group. And this is what an Agent Zero is. It's the person who's not only a part of one network, but who's able to connect between many vastly different networks and be at the center of them. Is at the elbow of every deal.
Right at the elbow of every deal. If you can connect enough people, and if you can be the person that's actually handing the relationship to the other person, and it's fruitful to both sides, it's a magical power. It's really hard to say be like Gary. Gary sends multiple emails a week, which is sort of against email marketing code, besides Peter Shankman. And Gary is very, he's just that edge of spammy. He's just like, you know, me, and we still like him.
We still like him. Yeah. So he's the kind of person that brings in a lot of unique talents, so that even though, you know, he is all about him, you're like, yeah, I understand, I'm all about me too. Yeah, he wants to make a lot of money, and so do I. You know, it's weird. Somehow you can empathize with it. He makes it work. Lewis Howe.
Lewis Howe, raise your hand just a minute, please. Lewis Howe, right here.
So, how are you?
You may not know Lewis, but you will after this moment, because I think he's somebody you should know. Lewis is a former professional athlete. He's the only guy in this room who holds a world record for sports, I'm guessing. Anyone else want to fight me?
Didn't think so.
I'll sick my Lewis on you. Not only this, you know, enjoys salsa dancing, he's a good guitar player, sings love songs. I mean, he's the ultimate perfect guy. That's why I get mad at him sometimes. But Lewis is also a connector. He and Frank Agan wrote a book called Linked Working, and he's showing people what, you know, some of the values are inside of LinkedIn. We think LinkedIn is very underutilized by most people, but Lewis has done a lot with this. He's gone out, he's done some shows. He just recently spoke, I think here in New York, right, to a whole bunch of sports professionals, including like the founder of ESPN and all that. I mean, Lewis has taken this from some guy who uses LinkedIn to some guy who's getting handed off and introduced to all kinds of, you know, big name people, right, because he's Agent Zero and he's out there connecting and working those connections all the time.
Being able to understand, people's language, we talked about language before, is important to being Agent Zero, so you can connect different groups. You become the translator. You become the person that connects between all kinds of different groups and is like, oh, these people won't understand these people without me. Once again, the elbow of every deal, you know?
In the enterprise software game in the 1990s, the best person to be was the integrator. Because this system would not talk to this system, and I'd make all the money in the middle. Whitney Hoffman, the mother of PodCamp, you want to tell a couple words about her?
I mean, Whitney Hoffman is once again, the person who knows how to, she is the business arm of it. She understands how everything works. She's the one who makes the trains run on time. The Agent Zero is the person that is always connecting between people. We have a theory called Dunbar's number. Do we have a slide for that here?
We have it on the, and it's probably good to move this.
Dunbar's number is it's kind of like the monkey number. You know, it's groups of monkeys or of primates or whatever always have a number of people that they can, or a number of, you know, their fellow primates that they can connect with, after which they can't seem to make strong ties. That number is around 150, and it's around the same 150 for us. Right. And so what an Agent Zero has to be is he has to be the part of the 150 of a tight group of 150, whatever they happen to be, whether professional athletes or whether affiliate marketers or social space people, and he has to be able to do that with a number of groups. So there's not a bunch of skills that are involved in that, but once you are that person, you're immensely powerful.
Right, so I mean the point in the 150 is that, I mean, you can get really tight to a group of 150 people. Then normally we do this in a couple different ways. We do this regionally. You guys all hang out with some of those friends that are still super cliquey with either like the place they went to high school or the town they grew up in or whatever their local scene is, and they're all about their local scene, and they're like, man, Austin is the only place. And I do work with Austin businesses. I'm an Austin guy. F off. That's great, except that you don't get anywhere besides Austin. You want to scale, baby. You always want to grow. You want to be the ATMs of the bank. You don't want to be the bank. Being part of everybody's 150. You live or die by your database. I'm kind of rushing because I know we got about 15 minutes. Jeff Pulver taught me this way early on. maintain your own database. That means, for Twitter friends, make them LinkedIn connections, then pull them into your own database and make them yours that you manage and massage. I use software for this. It's called Batchbook. It's by Batch Blue Software. I think they've sponsored one of my conferences, so that's disclosure. Disclose, you bitches. I use them because I want to have a different relationship with my people than what LinkedIn allows me and what Twitter allows me and all that. I can do things like stripe them by people who I like in the media or people who live in Boston or whatever, such that I can talk to them in a way that they're not being talked to, and I can be as personal as I want. This is the age of mass customization. Don't throw out email to everybody. Throw out email to the people you're reaching in a very direct way. We'll talk about that a little later too. Be the priest, build the church. Julian?
Which one?
Be the priest, build the church.
Be the priest, build the church. Anyway, they get it.
Whatever.
We're running out of time, I think, dude.
Yeah, right. So, human artists. We're human artists. Okay. No.
That's it.
Yeah, that's all. That's actually, the funny thing of that picture is it was actually from yesterday, so it's kind of fun to use like immediate slides. I would have done one from right now, but I didn't want to take my own twit pic. The idea of human artists is that we've discovered that etiquette isn't just nice to have.
Skill, right? Yeah.
We think that there's all these skills that translate to how you can be human on the web that no one's teaching. We think it's an important part of this, and honestly, it's kind of our most important part of the book in that learning how to make relationships and learning how to do something with those relationships in a human, not scummy way, we think is the next game changer, especially if you can do it over the web. And we just lost like a whole bunch of people's attention because it doesn't scale.
Right.
You can't just do it in your underpants.
But the expression, which I think is really comes, the core of this, is being able to be human at a distance. So we lose a lot of our social signals when we're far away from someone. If you and I are communicating, then, I'll shake your hand. There's a social signal. We're looking at each other in the eyes, that kind of thing. Or I'm avoiding your gaze because I think you're cute, like whatever, you know what I mean? Like, these kinds of things are social signals that we understand innately as people, but we've never learned these signals for the web. What does it mean when somebody doesn't answer an email? Why aren't they answering email? Whenever somebody's being antisocial at a party, everyone just doesn't want to they want to turn away. They use body language to show that that person is not behaving correctly. And yet on the internet, we lose a lot of these. And so being able to understand how to be human at a distance means that you'll have an advantage over everyone. Being a human artist, that's what we call it.
Do you ever see this at a party, like in networking parties? I'm not going to attack.
Okay.
So face me, and I was like, oh hey, good to meet you. How you doing? How's everything going? What's going on?
I fucking hate that. I fucking hate that. Dude, oh my god,
right?
Douche.
So you know what that's like, and you remember that. Like that's happened to you, right?
Yeah.
You remember that feeling deep in your belly, and that person's card goes in the shitter.
Okay, when this happens, come up to us if you see us after this has happened to you and tell us the story. We would love to hear it. I hate it so much.
Yeah, and please, like confessional. Tell us.
By the way, it's like the iPhone fees. Oh yeah?
Oh yeah.
Oh really?
I do that all the time.
Oh yeah, hold on.
I do that I do it to Julien all the time.
I can't handle it. Oh my god, man.
Yeah. Pretty girl at the bar. This is such a Julien thing, and the weirdest part of reading the audiobook of Trust Agents was I'm reading about how to pick up chicks.
Right.
Yeah, that's good.
Nice.
Thanks, Julien.
What we talk about is you've got the pretty girl at the other end of the bar, and everybody looks over, and they look over all night, but they're not actually going to go up to them. It happens the same thing, like when you see somebody who's a superstar here, or at any other conference, people that are successful, you're afraid to come up to them, so you treat them differently. And when you go up to the girl, if you even have, the strength to go
I didn't know where you were going with that hand gesture.
I wasn't sure where I was going to go either. But if you have the courage to go up to her, you're going to treat her like she's good looking, which is the wrong thing to do. You need to treat her like a normal person, and that's what you need to be doing with everybody here. You know what I mean? Relating to them on a human level and being able to, this is why, sometimes I'll put a really stupid slide in the thing, and I'll be like, this shows off my sense of humor, which that way you understand someone else as a person instead of just like, here's a bunch of information. We would rather make you laugh than tell you something you don't know. It sounds kind of weird, but as a result, we end up tighter, and it makes more sense that way. We need to treat each other as people, and as a result, we'll end up as, much tighter, better group.
Chris Penn, who co-founded PodCamp with me, we get the same response everywhere we go when we go to other events together. People afterwards will be like, oh, you're so nice, I really enjoyed meeting you, that was so great. And they'll turn to him and go, wow, you're so smart, I've just changed the business. You know? Like, he'll help you make bank, and then I'll be just like happy and dopey. And but the thing is, then I get the phone call, and then he's a little bummed out. He's like, oh, they don't want to hang out with me. I'm like, shut up and go make more money. Right? Because that's what he does. How do you get mail answered, man? One last thing about Pretty Girl at the Dance. We talked a little bit about the dare to go up there and say hi. Treat everyone just like they're people. Steve Garfield from stevegarfield.com told me that. And it was the best advice I got before I started meeting famous people. I'm talking to Vinod Khosla, who's like, a multi-billionaire type of guy. Oh, pleasure to meet you. How you been? How was your flight in? Just basic stuff. Before I would have been like, my God, this guy poops more money than I make in 5 years. His dinner last night cost more than my house.
Dude, I have to say one more thing about this, which just came to me. No. But you can talk more about that if you want.
That's later.
Okay. It's that the people that are on top often forget that they're normal people too. And so if you're acting like you're higher than someone else, you're doing the same thing, but you're doing it on the opposite level. And you're acting like a douche, and nobody's going to tell you because, maybe they think they're impressed by you or something like that, but at the end they're going to come away, they're not going to be particularly happy. So the more you act like you're on top of the world, or the more you act like you're inferior to someone, the more, the less people will be able to relate to you. So if everyone else is asking for favors, don't be an idiot and ask for a favor also. You just want to be like, hey, what's going on? Hey, good to see you the other day. Something else and something different that will allow people to be memorable.
By the way, here's what Julien was saying, when you get kind of famous in some form or another, you start to lose track of being human and all that, and you can be real dick. One of the reasons you do is because people then rush you all the time and ask you for things in huge numbers. Oh, really glad to meet you. I'm really hoping you can check out my startup. Oh, I'm really glad to meet you. I was really wondering if you could check out my website. Oh, I'm really glad to meet you. I really haven't been hitting with my links lately. Can you help me out with that? And you're just kind of like, whoa, back up, Bubba. So you want to be another really super secret trust agent move, and this guy, this super famous guy, Tim Sanders, who wrote Love is the Killer app, did this to me the other day. 2 weeks in a row I've been having really miserable days, just miserable days. And this guy's like, I've got to talk to you for 15 minutes. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to kill myself right now. I'm going to cut my wrist open with this email. And it didn't work. But he ended up giving and giving and giving for 15 minutes. I about cried, but I'm a guy. So I did the guy cry. Thanks, Tim. That was good. But listen, I misspelled hoard. I'm so sorry. Share instead of hoard, I used the wrong spelling. It's H-O-A-R-D. I just wanted to point that out. Build armies. You shall know us by our dial tone. One U.S. president changed the way people market in the political game. You do not have to support his politics. You do not have to like him. It does not matter. The thing is, he mechanically won because he understood that people don't answer their damn landline. And the other guy, just a hair shorter, better than the internet is a series of tubes, thank you, Alaska, was like, oh, dial the landline phones. They'll pick up. That's how you market. And, his team did that. This guy went out to Twitter, to Facebook, to everything. The guy was everywhere with his system. And he built social networks of people who built armies because they became the message. What's the name of that book? You liked it. Well, you didn't like it.
Oh,
you mentioned it.
Yes, we did.
Yes, we did.
I didn't read it. No, I bet it might be good.
But the story behind this girl was just that, she just kind of supported once ever and just kind of sucked into the message.
Basically, go where the people are. Don't dial on their, even if when my landline phone rings, I actually, I'm shocked. I'm like, what is this stuff? How do I, knocking on
You look for the green button on it?
Yeah.
You try to slide it open? In the future, there's going to be aliens looking at us going, what was that? Dude, it's weirder with a Palm Pre. Anybody a Palm Pre user? Man, that thing's like, you're doing this. It's like Jay-Z. Thank you, inside joke. We're blowing out of time here, so bum rush the charts. Ask Julien, if you want to ask Julien a question that would be kind of like a good icebreaker, ask him about bum rush the charts, because they did this really cool project where they got a whole bunch of people to go buy one song from one pod safety musician.
Right. So basically the idea being a bunch of podcasters going and deciding that they're going to take not this girl, I have no idea who this
I don't
girl
even know who she is.
but some other band, and rise them up to the top of the iTunes charts. And it went pretty well. This is a song that really didn't sell very well and went all the way to like number 11 for the day. So it's basically like the first day that something launches, try to get it as high as possible. And because the fact that the internet is so big and we are so small as people, we often need large numbers of groups to go and do things. And so being able to gather those groups together and be like, okay, so we're all going to do this on one day. That involves, getting people involved in a cause. It involves making it so that you're not self-interested, because the more self-interested you are, the more people will know, oh, this guy's profiting, he's doing it for profit. There's all those things.
This is a comic book guy. Okay. No, what I was going to say is that this guy, it turns out he's in my town. It turns out he was reading my blog and I had no idea. It turns out he got into Twitter because of me and I had really no idea. I went and shook his hand one day, bought some comic books because I do, and we got in this conversation. And now this turd head, like every Wednesdays when new comics come out, he'll direct message me on Twitter and tell me the kinds of comics I would want to read, which ones are in. So it's like remember when you first ever got iTunes and you just throw money at your computer all day? Like, oh, I really do want 99 Luft balloons. Do you remember all those mornings after when you're like, why did I buy that? That's what this guy does. And the reason I'm saying this is build armies is the part of Trust Agents where we say that it's great that you've learned how to do all this on your own. If you don't build discipleship, then you can't scale. Better to be a coach than a teacher. My point, the last 3 points before we have to get pushed off the stage because Coco's looking feisty. Give your ideas handles is what we've done here.
Yeah, so great.
We've just said basically make everything in sort of a packageable, communicative way that you can then tell other people, now you go do it, because you can. It doesn't work well. You can't make communities work that way, it turns out. Seth Godin's tribes proved me wrong about my theories of community for several years. But it does work with ideas. Teach them to fish. You kind of get that, but you don't. When you're an affiliate manager, start training up the people who should replace you. Bring your own dial tone means don't trust Twitter, don't trust Facebook, don't trust LinkedIn, don't trust any system. It's the people. You must maintain and establish and own connections with the people outside of the system.
Right.
I think we blew through it all. Those are very important. I used to put my phone number on every slide, but I really don't want you to call me. You're very nice people. I like most of you. I'm changing my phone number soon because I just can't handle my telephone. But there's our that's. And I had a thing for questions, but that's not going to happen. We're going to sign books for you folks, I guess, if that's interesting. And if not, I mean, we'll sign you. Where, Jim?
I don't know.
Jim knows. Thank you for your time. I'm Chris Brogan. This is Julien Smith. Thank you so much.